A drunken night with friends turns tragic.
So there's the knife right here. And I grabbed it, and it went like this.
A man is dead. Was it self-defense?
I couldn't breathe, and I felt like, seriously, like I was scared.
Or did a social media post show something more sinister?
Those thoughts were in her head 4 weeks before.
We, the jury, fixed the defendant's sentence to state penitentiary for a term.
Did the punishment fit the crime?
If that's what they call justice, I don't know, man.
Everybody loved Houston Johnson.
Houston was very charismatic.
He, lived life to the fullest.
And he was like the life of the party, like that was Houston.
On a summer home from college, Mandy Tassa met and fell in love with Houston.
We had a very fun relationship. I always felt really secure with him.
They had a son, Kyle. 8 months later, they split but remained close.
Houston and I ended up being best friends, and a love for Kyle, and that bounded us together.
Several years and girlfriends later, Houston met Kaylee Whitehall.
Kaylee runs
Kaylee runs what?
everything.
She runs what?
Everything. But everything is this. As long as I got this, I'm good.
Free.
Many weren't happy about it.
My first impression of Kaylee was negative because she walked in with a can of alcohol in her hand. I mean, who does that when you go meet your boyfriend's family? I just kind of got a sense of arrogance about her.
I did not approve of her from what he had told me. She was very possessive, did not want him around his friends. She wanted to just control every aspect of his life.
The Bowling Green, Kentucky couple had been off and on for 3.5 years. And their last fight was a big one. A kick her out, I'm moving on, big one. Houston even enlisted the help of his best friend, Dennis Melbourne.
He was like, hey, bro, help me move Kaylee's stuff to the garage. I want her out.
But the very next day, Houston and Kaylee were back together.
I mean, relationships aren't perfect. I mean, there's gonna be arguments. They argue. It was nothing too crazy until that night.
That night was a Thursday night. Dennis, his girlfriend Brittany Jones, and her son went over to Houston's and Kaylee's to hang out. But first, to the liquor store.
We went to get us drinks for the night. We went back. I helped my son with his homework, and they started listening to music and having drinks.
But Dennis says Houston wasn't acting like his usual fun-loving self. His relationship with Kaylee was weighing heavily on him.
He's like, hey, I don't think this is gonna work out. Between you and Kaylee? I was like, yeah, man. I'm not happy, she's not happy. He's like depressed.
After putting her son to bed in the guest room, Brittany joined the others.
Everybody was drunk but me.
And soon Kaylee and Houston were arguing, then yelling and swearing at each other. Then things turned physical.
Somehow he put her in a headlock. I'm like, okay, let her go, Houston, no, let her go. He finally lets her go, and he leaves out the garage.
Kaylee told Brittany she was moving out because of nights like this one.
Just rage came over her. Everything in her sight, she starts picking up and throwing towards him.
A whole lot was going on, like glass, shot glasses, bottles were thrown at him, and I was trying to shield him. And we get back to his bathroom. He's holding his face. He has blood on his hands. And then I look at him, I'm like, oh my God. He has a cut like right here. It's like a big old gash.
Houston and Dennis come back out to an ever-escalating fight.
Kaylee's still going ballistic.
She goes around to the kitchen and she grabs a knife, like a big butcher knife. And he was like, oh, you want to play with knives?
Brittany says Houston takes the knife from Kaylee and she falls to the ground. Dennis takes the knife away from Houston.
And I'm like, Houston, let her go. And he let her go. And I'm like, Kaylee, okay, it's getting crazy now. You and I, let's just go to my house. And she was like, no, I'm not going nowhere. I'm not leaving my stuff here.
Instead, she goes into the bedroom to take her TV. Houston follows her in, starts cutting the cables, then stops.
He's like, you know what? You ain't getting it. And he reaches around me because I'm standing like a barrier in between them. He hits her in her face. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, stop.
Through the hysteria, Brittany manages to pull Kaylee out of the room, but Kaylee makes her way back to the bedroom.
By the time I made it back in the room, Dennis and Houston were going in the bathroom, and Dennis closed the bathroom door to separate them.
Kaylee picks up an iron and throws it at the door. Then a thud is heard from the other side of the door. It was Houston.
He collapses, like knees first, and then he falls like face first to the ground. I flip him over to check his shirt. He has a puncture wound.
Houston had been stabbed in the chest.
And Dennis is like, call 911. She's like, no, he's just faking. He's just drunk. There's nothing wrong with him.
She comes into the bedroom, like, really arrogant, like, this is what you get, like, taunting him, over him. He's like, man, he's just drunk. I didn't stab him that hard. I'm like, wow.
But Houston wasn't faking it, and his life was slipping away.
And he was like really gasping for air. So she was like, oh, I know I'm about to go to jail.
Medical Center EMS. Tell me exactly what happened.
My friend has a puncture wound in his lung, and he needs to go to a hospital ASAP. Houston, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, man. Oh my God.
I'm trying to resuscitate him like by giving him chest compressions. And he's just slowly fading away, fading away. And then I think when she realizes that he really wasn't breathing anymore, she just like panics.
Kaylee can be heard in the background of the 911 call.
Please, someone, please.
Keep going.
Keep going, keep going, keep going. Keep doing chest compressions with me. You're doing a great job.
Houston, listen to me. Why are you not breathing?
It was on that bathroom floor Houston took his last breath.
It was hard to see him just laying there with his eyes open and lifeless.
I freaked out. I ran to the garage and cried my eyes out until the police came.
Houston Johnson was pronounced dead at the hospital.
I think God put me there in that situation to speak for him, to tell the truth.
A party spirals out of control when Houston Johnson and his live-in girlfriend Kaylee Whitehall break into a horrible fight.
He hits her in her face. She grabs a knife.
Friends Dennis Melbourne and Brittany Jones try to break it up, but their valiant efforts prove unsuccessful. Stabbed in the chest, Houston collapses and dies on the bathroom floor.
It's my first time I've seen somebody die in front of me.
When Houston's ex-fiancée Mandy Tassa learned he had been killed,
One of my first questions was, did Kaylee do it? And all I could think about was having to tell my son his father was gone.
I was in social studies and I got called down to the office. At first I thought I was like in trouble. I saw my mom and my mom was crying and I knew something was wrong, and then just things were all bad from there.
Kaylee was taken down to the Bowling Green Police Department. There she told lead detective Wade Hughes her relationship with Houston was an abusive one.
I didn't even do anything wrong. I just protected myself because I didn't want him hitting me no more. This happens all the time. Like, this is our normal thing. He just gets mean and gets abusive, and that's it. That's what happens. But this time I don't even know what to do right now. This is so psycho to me. I feel like I'm in a movie. My life is perfect. Like, it really is perfect except for this one thing, you know? It's like crazy.
After Kaylee changed, her clothes were taken into evidence. Detective Hughes dug deeper.
So is the only time that you had the knife was in the kitchen?
Yeah, that's the only time.
So like you wouldn't have it like in the bedroom, bathroom?
No, it was only in the kitchen.
Next, investigators took Kaylee back to the house. There, Kaylee stuck to her story, saying she only had the knife in the kitchen.
I was a grab my keys and he came up from behind me and he got me in a chokelock. And so I went like this and I couldn't breathe. And I had a candle right here. Then I threw the candle. So I was trying to get him off of me and it didn't work. So there was the knife right here. And I grabbed it and I went like this. So I came in here and he was laying down, and I don't even know because he was so normal. asshole. Like, he yelled at me, he even got vice grips to fix the TV, to get the thing off, and so I didn't even think I touched him, and then he just fell down.
How did this get in the door?
This has been here, this was from tonight, this is another dispute.
Where was the knife?
The knife was on the counter. I don't know where I put it because I really don't. I don't even know if I threw it when he pushed me back this way or if I dropped it or if they picked it up. I really don't know. Honestly, I don't know where I put the thing.
Investigators asked if there was anything else they needed to know.
I just don't want you leaving anything out because it's always worse if you leave something out than it is if you just are upfront with us about it.
Honestly, I have nothing to hide. I just feel bad that this whole thing even happened like this. Oh my God. Do you need anything else from me?
So Kaylee gave her version of events and said she had nothing to hide. But Brittany was about to blow up her story. Although Brittany didn't see the actual stabbing, she remembers Kaylee having the knife in the kitchen and in the bedroom.
Okay, how'd the knife get in here?
I have no idea.
Okay, but it was in the room in here.
Yeah.
All right, so
In fact, I'm not sure, but I think she still had it in her hand when she came out. She was like, I didn't stab him that hard. Like, I think it was still in her hand.
when did you see her with a knife?
I'm thinking like when we were out there and she was throwing the iron. Like she had, I think that's when I saw her the night before she picked up the iron and threw it.
The next day, Detective Hughes interviewed Kaylee again. The audio was recorded. And after being confronted with the facts of the case, Kaylee did an about-face.
The autopsy tells me that your first statement isn't exactly what happened.
Detective Hughes told Kaylee he knew the kitchen wasn't the only place she had a knife.
There was 2 knife incidents that happened. There was that one, and then there was the one when he was stabbed.
Hughes said he also knew Houston wasn't stabbed by the slashing motion she had demonstrated.
I know from the wound that it likely happened on the frontal, okay? And I know that it came in a downward motion.
Detective Hughes says the investigation brought them to this theory. After Brittany pulled Kaylee away from Houston in the bedroom, Kaylee then grabbed a knife from the kitchen, went back into the bedroom, and stabbed Houston in the chest. They refer to a diagram they've drawn.
The knife on the counter, and so you get a knife from here, and you're going back into the bedroom with the knife. When you got the knife, did you go back into the room and be like, I'm tired of this, boom?
No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't even know. I just wanted to make sure. And by the time that even happened, he was already at me. He was already at me.
Help me understand why we went back.
Because I just wanted to make sure he wasn't going to come after me anymore. That's it. I just wanted to make sure he wasn't going to grab me. I should have left. I know I should have left, but he would have got free and grabbed me by my hair.
During an out-of-control fight, Kaylee Whitehall stabbed her boyfriend Houston Johnson to death. She first claimed she stabbed him in the kitchen, then changed her story to say it happened in the bedroom.
Yeah. If you got the knife from the counter, you're going to have to take a few steps to get to the doorway.
Yeah. I don't remember. I just grabbed it and I turned around, and it just happened so quick.
The part of her story that remained the same was the motive. She said it was self-defense, but was it? Some wondered after a curious post on Kaylee's social media raised alarm bells. Written weeks before Houston's death, Kaylee wrote, "Go back to sleep, baby. I'm planning your funeral."
Whether she was trying to play around or not, those thoughts were in her head. They had to have been in her head for her to post that 4 weeks before.
Reportedly, Kaylee said it was just a joke. Either way, more than 2 months after Houston's death, Kaylee Whitehall was arrested and charged with reckless homicide.
I believe that Kaylee Whitehall intentionally meant to stab Houston.
I was really surprised when that wasn't classified as a premeditated murder.
Then, almost a year later, the case went to trial. The prosecutor argued Kaylee recklessly caused Houston's death. Kaylee's attorney argued she was merely defending herself.
Her attorney wanted to be as if she was fearing for her life. I don't feel like she was fearing for her life. She wasn't fearing for her life at all. In fact, she made it known that she wasn't scared of him.
Among the many witnesses, Detective Hughes described Kaylee's changing story.
So the final interview, the story changes.
That's correct.
Towards the end of this interview, she tells you that she held the knife in a different position than what she originally told you.
That's correct. She held it with the blade down from her hand like that.
The trial lasted 3 days. The verdict came in 3 hours. Guilty. Kaylee could have gotten 5 years, but instead,
We, the jury, fixed the defendant's sentence of reckless homicide confinement to state penitentiary for a term of 4 years.
I believe that was a slap in the face. This man is gone, and she only got 4 years.
Houston's best friend, Dennis, feels justice hasn't been served.
If the shoe was on the other foot, Houston would have been cell blocked the courtroom before his trial even began. If that's what they call justice, I don't know, man.
And now they're all left to deal with the pain, loss, and for Dennis, guilt.
I blame myself every day. I tried my best to even try to squash the argument. It escalated to the point where nobody could control it.
Mandy feels it's important for people to remember that domestic violence does not discriminate.
Houston is the victim in this case. It doesn't matter your race, your size, your gender. Domestic violence can occur to anyone. And in this case, a white female stabbed a black male. And that is why he's no longer with us.
And to Kaylee, she says,
You may be able to carry on a future after you get out. But I hope you always remember the future you stole from my son.
the son who hopes to forever have his father's love.
Just doing good things, succeeding at everything I do. And even if I do something bad, that he would realize that overall I'm still his son and he would always love me.